Yo, what is up, YouTube? Welcome back to my Black Mage attempt series. So this is my second ever run of Black Mage, and in this one I show significant improvements over my first run, which was my first one was on February 1st of 2022, and this one was 2 days later on February 3rd. If my first run was a 0 out of 10, which is what I would probably rate it as, this one might be a 1 out of 10, so much better, but also very far away from being good. Now, this party that I'm running with was actually a random party that I came across in Reboot Central. There were a lot of people in the beginning of the month looking for fun runs because it's the beginning of the month. You're not in any danger of not being able to clear for the month yet if you're doing your liberation quests. So there are a lot of for fun runs, and I was able to luckily join this one and make another attempt at Black Mage. And you'll notice that I'm doing a much better job of preparing. If you look at the buff bar up above, I have all of the major buffs that I have access to activated. If you remember from my previous video, I did not have that. By the way, I'm going to link my previous video in the video section, in the description section below, so that you can watch that first if you want to see the difference and the improvement from run 1 to number 2. Another improvement is that I actually have all of the right skills keybound. That's also important, of course. In video 1, you'll remember that I did not have some of my major skills keybound, which is not good. So here we are. We're about to go into the boss, and let's just see how it goes. Oh, if I remember correctly, this is so I'm popping my weapon over there. This is a run. Yeah, so this is the run in which they were doing the quick bind technique, which is to just bind one of the bosses with long bind and bind the other boss, or sorry, the statues. Bind one with the long bind, bind the other with short bind. And instead of running to the right side, you actually just wait in the middle. I did not know that. So that was a lack of communication on our part and a lack of understanding on my part in terms of what quick bind meant. So usually what happens, or what my party intended to do, was we would all jump to the right side and wait for the Kana to bind the bosses. But in the quick bind version, you just do it immediately, you wait in the middle, and you just get ready to burst. So I was the only person all the way out on the right. As you see here, I jump all the way to the right, but everyone else is staying in the middle because apparently everyone else got the memo and I didn't. So by the time I got done popping my burst buffs and getting set up, Black Mage's HP is already going down a lot. But at least this time, I actually did burst, with my roar and with my burst buffs and everything. So again, I only did 3T, but it's because by the time I started bursting, everyone else had already been bursting for a long time, and this party was actually quite strong, albeit inexperienced. So then we go into P2, and if I remember correctly, I played this P2 much better than I played P2 the previous time. So here I am in darkness. You always go right into darkness at the beginning of the fight. I'm actually doing damage this time. I think I start my BA a little bit later, but we'll be able to evaluate that soon. Yeah, so there I start my BA. I was very grounded in this attempt. I was standing on the ground. I think I was afraid of jumping around too much. So there I dodged the spikes. I probably shouldn't have used Feather Float, but it just what came to mind. That was an easy flash jump out. Here I am, jump cleaving. Okay, so you'll see what I did there. That was actually pretty good. So I'm over here, right, and I'm in darkness, and I realize I'm on the left side of the boss, right? My problem in my first run was that I was always on the left side of the boss, and I was always getting caught in bad patterns because I was stuck on the left side. So when I ended up on the left side, I realized, oh, I should probably get out of here because I don't want what happened to me last time to happen this time. And so I jumped to the right, and unfortunately the timing happened such that immediately I went into darkness and spikes were happening at the same time. So what happened here is actually pretty good by me, which is that in darkness, I realized that I was like, you see this red thing right here? This is a spike. So I realized that I was way too close to a spike. And so I moved to the left. See, I walked to the left and that space is empty. It does not have a spike. But then a spike spawns there. And so in my mind, because I know that the right spike, the spike right next to me, has already been there for a while, and the spike that spawned on top of me just spawned, I know that I have time to use that space after the spike activates to my right, and escape from the spike that's on top of me right now. So it's really important to like have that mental awareness of, oh yeah, a spike spawned to my right, but that is going to activate before the one that's on top of me. So I'm going to use that as my exit plan to dodge this current spike. So here I am, I don't panic, I'm waiting, I see that one activate, and I feather float out. Of course, you could have also flash jumped or even just walked between them. Adele has feather float, so I use that because it's relatively a safe option. See, there we go. And so I dodged that spike in what I would consider a pretty good way of doing so. So here I am, I'm actually doing damage, thank God. So this is, okay, so I literally just described a situation in which dodging spikes using feather float was really good. And then here, I kind of screwed myself using feather float. Granted, the spike timing was really tight, and so feather float was probably my safest option. But you'll notice that because I used feather float to the left, what ended up happening is that whites are coming, and I now don't have feather float, which is the best way for an Adele to escape whites. So what happens here, I'm pretty sure I lose some lives here. What happens here is that I'm trying to find an opening to escape these whites. And because I don't have my feather float off cooldown, I don't have that option. And because I'm not confident with any of the other options, I'm kind of stuck here. So what happens is, we'll just watch it in regular speed first. I just get destroyed. I think I lost 3 lives there, which is really bad. So basically, what I should have done is I should have just been comfortable walking through, right? You can actually just dodge whites by walking in between, like if you just walk in a straight line, while this one, like right there, if I'm like right here, if I just keep walking to the right, I'll dodge both this one and this one. I'll just kind of weave in through that diagonal. However, I was afraid to do that. I was still afraid to like walk through the chains and the cat eyes, and so I ended up continuing to go left, kind of waiting for my feather float to come off cooldown, thinking I had more time, and in reality, I'm taking a lot of HP damage right now. I'm getting hit by a lot of things, and here I actually proc HP heal. I actually heal, and but unfortunately, I'm still waiting too long, and now I realize, fuck, like I just placed myself back in the same terrible position that I kept doing in my previous run, which was on the left, stuck beneath a bunch of whites, and also with rollings about to hit me in the face. So once again, I placed myself in a really bad position, and what happens here is that I get hit by the white and the spike, and the chain at the same time, so I lose my first curse death. And I'm kind of panicking because I don't know about you guys, but when I first started, whenever I saw this, I just kind of panicked. I'm like, God damn it, I lost a curse death and I'm still in danger because like I didn't HP die, so I still got to escape from the situation somehow. So I'm panicking. If I keep moving forward, I think what happens is I get hit by a second chain, so now I have black curse. And remember, I get skill locked, so even though my feather float came off cooldown at this point, I still couldn't use it. So like waiting was just the it was just a bad option all around. And then I get hit by the white, which gives me another curse death, and then I also die from HP, which is a third death. So all in all, that gave me 3 deaths right there, which just really goes to show how unforgiving Black Mage is sometimes if you place yourself in a really bad position and you don't use your wills. What I could have done is I could have used one of my wills and I could have just gotten hit by all of those things, and I would have taken an HP death, but I wouldn't have taken 2 additional curse deaths, right? So that's the important thing about using will skills, Hero's Will and Will of Urda in Black Mage. And at this point in my runs, I still didn't have any conception of that being like something that I should utilize in moments like that. So if you just go back, I think it's worth rewatching, because it was just so unfortunate. So here I feather float out, and I'm in a bad spot. I don't have my feather float. You see how I'm like hesitating to walk through because I'm just scared of taking touch damage. Boom, 3 lives just in a just in the blink of an eye. 3 lives are gone. You know, sometimes people say like, oh, if you get hit by something and you have white curse, then you should pop will skill, right? In that position where I was, I should have preemptively popped will skill, just because like I know I'm most likely going to get hit by numerous things that give me alternating black and white curses. And so like to avoid losing too many curse lives, you know, I should have just popped will skill first. So here I am, you know, it's gotta get myself back in the game. You notice I've already done 3T, right? Which is how much damage I did in total in my previous run. So this is definitely an improvement from the DPS perspective. So yep, there I am. I feather float out. And actually that sequence demonstrates improvement because here I was totally just tanking all of those hits from the cat eyes, but I was okay with it, right? Part of that is due to the fact that I was actually running auto recovery 2 this time, which I actually crafted and remembered to prepare ahead of time. So once again, that preparation is really important. So here I kind of do a really bad thing. Okay, yeah. So I see rollings coming, and you see how I have all of this empty space in the middle of the boss. Like, okay, like when these rollings hit, there is nothing in the air, right? And Adele has great aerial mobility. So the fact that I jumped into this right corner is really shooting myself in the foot, because I could have easily just up jumped here and I would have been completely safe, right? Why did I place myself into the corner where I have less room to maneuver? But I think having seen videos of people dodge things in both P2 and P3, I think my mindset was like, oh, well, if people are using the right corner to dodge things in P3, then, you know, that must be a good option for P2, right? That's like just how you dodge rollings. But that's not actually the case, especially if you're like an Adele and you can actually just like float, blink, impale, resonance rush, feather flow, flash jump, like all of these options to get over rollings. You shouldn't be placing yourself into the corner like I did here, because then what happened was, you see, I jump up, and this is not, that's not bad per se, but what happened was that then I start like, okay, so I plummet down because I see that there's space in between, which again, that's also not bad because I was able, I was able to dodge a chain by doing that. And then I jump right back up, right? So this isn't bad, but because I'm in this corner and because I'm afraid of taking additional hit damage from the chains, I'm paying too much attention to like all of that stuff that's happening. I end up feather floating out and getting hit by this spike right here, which is just really dumb. Like, so I die an HP death there, and so that's my 4th life gone. I essentially placed myself in a corner position by jumping to the right instead of utilizing all of the space I had in the middle to dodge that series of rollings. So, okay, this part's really funny because you can see how everyone is in the middle for this FMA and they're just dying. The reason for this is because one of the people very confidently called that it was middle FMA when it was actually left. And so everybody here just died. They trusted in their teammate and their teammate let them down. But, you know, it was like a haphazardly thrown together party. And so I don't really blame the fact that there wasn't as good of a communication line between these party members. I'm pretty sure I die a couple of times to simply the fact that no one was calling out the fact that there was rollings or whites and FMAs and stuff like that. And because my actual party has a very good timer, it definitely threw me off a little bit. So this is Burst. What's nice about Adele Burst is the fact that you can kind of just pop true nobility, your green shield, and it will just kind of tank everything. What's not good about it is that I got stuck here. Okay, so this is a bit unfortunate because I probably shouldn't have done that. I was focused too much on trying to actually do damage, and I think this is the result of seeing how little damage I did in the previous run and feeling bad about it. But I was focused a little bit too much on doing damage. I jump in, and then I place myself in a position again where I have too little space to work with on the right side to deal with these rollings. It also doesn't help that Infinity Blade is so fucking like obnoxious in terms of its visuals that it does become kind of hard to see some of these patterns, right? Because especially because Infinity Blade is purple and like all of the stuff in Black Mage is like reddish purple as well. Definitely not, it doesn't make it easier. It's something that you got to get used to. So here I think I'm just like a little bit panicking, and I reacted too late. So I think what happened here is that, let me just slow this down. Yeah, so I did not realize. Also, where is my character right now? I actually don't know. Wait a second. See, it's one thing to lose track of your character in the middle of a boss fight. It's even worse to lose track of it while you're watching the VOD for the boss fight. Okay, so here I am. I'm jumping over here. I'm still trying to DPS the boss. Like, I'm still trying to cleave here, even though like that cleave is not hitting anybody. So, you know, I should have just been focused on dodging. Also, right here, I should have just jumped straight up. Like, there's nothing here. This entire space is empty, and I could have easily just jumped up, like Impale Resonance Rush to the middle. I would have, you know, hit the boss and actually done damage, and then I could have just floated here until the rollings passed. And during that entire time, Infinity Blade would have been hitting for me, you know, additional DPS, and I would have been in a much safer spot. But instead, I defaulted to the corner again. Okay, so let's see what happens here. Okay, so I get hit by that spike. I'm still stuck there. What is going on? Yeah, okay, so I'm just stuck there, and I can't see my character. I think that's the problem right here, right? It's another problem of being in the corner. It's really hard to see your character, especially when other people are also in the corner. So yeah, I just kind of get wrecked. Yes. So what happened was I lost track of my character, and because I had black curse and then I walked into this white right here, I lost a curse death and I lost an HP death, and boom. There goes a bunch more lives. So that's pretty interesting, right? Because the takeaway here, I feel like, is that in my previous run, I was always going to the left side and placing myself in a really bad position. I'll go over that in a sec. So yeah, on the left side, I was placing myself in a really bad position. I was getting pummeled by both the rollings and the whites because they were basically happening at the same time as a result of me placing myself in that location, and I was getting destroyed over there. In this run, I was using the far right too much and not dodging patterns when I could actually dodge them, right? Like if you see an opportunity to dodge a pattern and just clear yourself over it before another pattern has showed up, like that's your opportunity. That's the golden window in which you should just, you know, hop over all of the rollings. So now you can just deal with whites by themselves, right? Or like spikes haven't occurred yet, or there's no chains right now, like get over the rollings so that when those things do happen, you don't have to deal with the rollings at the same time. What I was doing was I was essentially jumping into the corner because for some reason I had this conception that that was the best place to go, and I was not giving myself enough space to actually dodge the patterns that were going to come after the rollings started. And because rollings last such a long time as they move from the left to the right, I was basically giving time for the patterns to sync up and become harder for myself to dodge, which is bad, right? I should be dodging them one at a time when I have the opportunity to do so. So that was a key takeaway here. Previous run, I was on the left too much. This run, I was on the right. I was too far to the right. So here it was full map FMA, right? And I didn't realize just how full map it was until I started already jumping. And so here I try to feather float out. I realize I'm too late, and so I guard. So this was good by me, right? Like I had the one option to save myself there, which was to guard, and that's the option that I went for. So this was pretty good. It was unfortunate that I happened to impale Res Rush into the middle of the map right as the spike spawned. So if you see here, yeah, like I happened to impale Res Rush to the middle right there when the spike spawned, and with Adele's shitty horizontal mobility and without immediately doing that feather float flash jump tech that I showed last time, I just didn't have enough time to get to the corner, so I had to essentially guard. So not the worst. That was bad. So here, you know, I mentioned before that the team wasn't as communicative. Definitely, I'm not putting the blame on them because it was a new party and a lot of people, either weren't used to running with them. And in my case, especially was the case, right? Like you saw how in the beginning of P1, I just jumped all the way to the right when everyone else was staying in the middle. Like I just wasn't sure what the game plan was in a lot of cases. And so I think this was a case in which someone called FMA, but like I didn't really quite hear it. And so by the time I reacted to it, it was already way too late. And I'm way too far to the right. You see how there are other people over here as well right here, but I'm pretty sure they're able to get there while I'm not. So let's watch that. Yeah, so they jump. I'm just a little bit too slow. Yep. I die right here. Like if I literally was like half a second earlier, I would have already been here and I would have been fine. But I was just a split second too slow. And this really opened my eyes to just how bad of a position it is to be like too far to the left or right of the boss when the FMA safe spot happens to be on the other side of the map. So that's why it's super important to stay in the middle of the map when FMA is about to happen. So I die right there. Super unfortunate, but could have been mitigated for sure. At this point, I'm pretty low on lives. Like, I thought I was playing P2 much better than the previous one, and from like a general macro sense, I was. But in these like small situations, I definitely was getting wrecked pretty badly. Okay, some more whites. Let's see how I deal with them this time. Oh, okay, that was good. So here I recognize the fact that on the right corner, once again, I did back myself into the right corner, but I think that's okay given the fact that there were a bunch of spikes in the middle and it was just whites by themselves, and the whites are diagonal in this direction, right? Because this white will just break on top of you, right? It hits the corner of the wall here and just breaks, and then you have space. So what I should have done here is I should have jumped up, impale Res Rush toward the middle. I would have hit the boss. I would have built a stack. I would have done damage, and I would have been in a safe spot, right? But instead, what I do is I'm still defaulting to the right corner. I jump up. Okay. Oh, so I actually do that technique, and I actually get out. So that was good. Yeah. So I actually did exactly what I said I should have done, but I should have done it earlier. You see how I took a bunch of like, that's another chain, right? So I'm only at like 1/3 of my HP at this point. Boom, I get hit by another chain. So I'm at this is like 1/5 of my HP when I finally feather float out. Like I could have done that much earlier and taken much less hit damage. And this was pretty risky on my part. So I come down, I plummet down because it's, if you're in the air, you don't have as much horizontal mobility. So if another pattern happens and you're in the air, it's much harder to dodge. So I recommend plummeting down to get back to the ground quicker so that you can react to things that are happening. And it ended up being the right choice because darkness and spikes happen at the same time. And by being on the ground, I was able to realize that there was not a spike on top of me in this position. So that was all in all, that particular sequence was actually pretty good by me for my second run. Did the right thing. Okay, so jump to this empty spot. Just cleaving away. Probably shouldn't be so stationary, but that's okay. FMA middle. Oh yes, that's right. Okay, so this is a middle FMA where the cat eyes are on top of you. If you have a Kana, you know, they can spam tree. Not spam, but you know, they can use tree. You should be constantly attacking the boss to procure your auto recovery 2. And by doing that, you know, you'll essentially be able to heal. This cat eye doesn't do that much damage. Also, your Kana probably places pink barrier, and you can just kind of stay there and tank a lot of these hits. I was panicking, I was freaking out, and I was like trying to walk. So I thought that there was like a safe spot, like a little bit to the right here, but evidently not. I like walked a little bit too far, and I got killed by the FMA. Like, you see how everybody who stayed in the middle actually survived? Like, that's what I should have done. And then what happened was we phased Black Mage, and I didn't realize that we had already gotten there. Because you see how, like, that shield, right? Like, I didn't keep track of the HP prior to when I died, because obviously I was focused on the fact that I died. And then so when I saw the shield come up, I didn't realize that we were so close to phasing. You see this white shield, right? I'm like, okay, yeah, like, I have time. But no, like, as soon as we broke the shield, we phased Black Mage. And the biggest problem with this is that this was actually before the patch where they fixed this. But when you phase Black Mage and you're dead, and you don't revive quick enough, you lose all of your buffs, even if you have buff freezers. So I unfortunately lost all of my buffs. And I also didn't realize that, because I wasn't like fully cognizant of the fact that that was like a glitch that was prone to happen. And so I go into P3 and I don't realize the fact that I don't have all my buffs. So here I am getting ready to burst, but like I'm really bad at it. I get sucked in and I freak out. I'm like immediately trying to walk out of it. Like, that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just... So this is where I realized I lost my buffs. I popped my green potion again, because at the very least I gotta, you know, maintain my attack speed so I can also like get out of there quicker when he kicks and stuff. You see how I'm like running into the boss and then like immediately walking out? Like, this is just bad. So that wasn't the worst. This was not an ideal way of dodging this pattern, but it wasn't the worst either. So I kind of go there and I just tank. I tank a laser. I take a purple laser. And then I happen to be like between the rolling, so I wasn't I didn't have to get hit by one of the white. I didn't get white cursed by the rolling, because I was walking along with the rollings. So it wasn't the worst thing. It wasn't the best thing, but you know, I made it work. I didn't die there. You see how like I'm just really afraid. I'm like standing on the outskirts of the bubble. Technically during P3 you can do that during the first, like before the first shrink. But it's just better to learn how to actually be inside of the boss and attack from there. Okay, so this was actually pretty good. So it was up FMA. Granted, if this was down FMA, I would have been kind of screwed. The party wasn't very good at communicating whether there was left or right platforms, if I remember correctly. So I just didn't realize. And I also wasn't good at listening for it. And so I was kind of reacting late here, right? Like, you see how, one, like, these people are not reacting to the FMA coming quickly enough. Like, at this point, we should not all be on the right side when FMA is already happening, right? Like, no one had scouted left for large left at this point. So we were kind of screwed if this was down FMA and, like, you know, people didn't have iframes or whatever. And then the fact that it's up FMA, like, you kind of have to up jump and blink, and some people maybe don't have as much options for staying in the air. Luckily Adele does. So what I do here is I jump up, but I realized that I had too much momentum going into the left, because I see everyone trying to move to the left, right? And I don't think that was probably not a good idea on their part, but I was just following the crowd, and then I jump to the left. But then I realized that I'm like getting too close to kick range, So what I actually do is I impale Res Rush straight up, right there, and then I blink afterward so that I'm outside of the kick range. So that was actually pretty good. All things considered, I think I did a pretty good job in living that particular FMA pattern. Plummet back down. But you see how like I have done absolutely no damage. Like 0. Okay, I do the plummet technique. There I blink up to dodge the super lasers. Still have done no damage. Freaking out. Waiting for kick. I got hit by the white curse there. I'm just waiting it out. Okay, dodge the lasers. I'm good. See, I'm like still just staying at the edge of the bubble because I'm afraid. Okay, I jump up. So during this entire time, I'm like taking massive damage reduction on my Infinity Blade. Oh, now it's down FMA and I'm fucked. I like, you see how like everybody was over here and like there was just not, I don't remember exactly how the communication was, but like I don't think I was in tune with what the party was doing, and so like I saw everybody there. I didn't realize that I was in a bad spot, and because Adele doesn't really have great options for dealing with down FMA if you don't have a big platform and you're not good at using the jump up and ether guard technique, you're kind of just fucked there. So yeah, I just died. Also, like I actually was kind of safe where I was, like right here, because like I could have actually just walked here because there was a platform here, right? So balls did break on this and like create a safe spot. That's why the people who were standing here actually survived. But because I was afraid to go into the circle, I died. So once again, this is like a perfect example of why you shouldn't be too afraid to like walk into Black Mage sometimes, because you know, it can save you in a situation like this. So I die there. I'm down to 3 lives. Better than my previous P3, but or like better than my previous run, but not by much. Here I am back on the right side of the boss. Another rolling. When you're panicking like I was here, like it feels like you're constantly having to dodge rollings. You see how I'm just like infinitely ducked there because I'm just like afraid. Also, like every single time he kicks, I duck for like forever. So I get kicked there because I'm not paying attention to how many attacks I have to... Oh my god. I really just yeah, this was like really, I think I thought that this, like in P2, was going to break like it usually does. And so I jumped, and then I realized that that's not what happens in P3. In P3, this ball does not break. And so I had to feather float out. But by that time, it was already too late in that I already got hit by the ball. And then I actually impale res rushed out, but like that was, I think that was also too late because I think I got kicked. Wait, let me see this. Okay, so feather float, boom. Yeah, so I actually got kicked as I was impale res rushing out. So I didn't dodge anything there. I just got hit by 2 white curses in a row. Luckily, it was 2 white curses and neither were black. Okay, so I jump up. Up FMA. Boom. Yep. So this is exactly what I was trying to avoid last time by impale res rushing up, and then so it was unfortunate because I got sucked right before it happened. So I got sucked to the middle of the boss, and then I defaulted to going to the left side and immediately got kicked. almost landed on the platform, but because there's too much momentum, I fell off, slid off, and then I died to the FMA. Another life lost. It was a bit unfortunate for a newbie like me to get sucked right before FMA, but you know, it happens. So I'm waiting it out. I'll just skip to when I actually go back into the fight. Here I am, still too afraid to do anything. Like waiting for kick. Like I'm just like waiting on the outskirts. So there I'm just infinitely ducked again. Like I was just so scared. Yeah, you see how like when I'm ducking, I'm actually moving to the right as well, like trying to escape from Black Mage. You're not supposed to be doing that. Like it's totally fine to be right under him as long as you're ducking when he kicks, right? So like you see here, like I get sucked in, I immediately walk to the right. Like you don't need to do that. You can just attack from where you are. Okay, so I duck, but I like walk to the right to duck. I think here I was trying to dodge the lasers, you know, so it wasn't the worst, but you can also just totally tank these blue lasers and be totally fine. So yeah, I keep repositioning myself to the right. I do it again there. And now I'm like at the edge of the circle again, where like I really don't need to do that to myself. Okay, so rollings come. Dodge that again. It's up FMA. I was freaking out. I was using every option I had. I was using every tool that I had here to stay in the air. But so something that I found out afterward is that if you land on the ground during up FMA and you don't die, it means that you happen to land during in between the ticks of damage that kill you. And if you land, you can actually just hold jump and continue to jump, and you will dodge all of the actual ticks of damage that will kill you. It's just a timing thing. Like if you survive the first, if you happen to land on the FMA when it's not ticking, then you can just keep jumping and you'll continuously land when it's not ticking. So here I should have just been spamming jump. I did, you know, I jumped up and floated, then I impale res rushed up and I was able to dodge the FMA. There I tried to jump up again. That was not a good idea because it happened to be during suck and I got pulled into here. And that's when I got wrecked, right? So here, I could have just gone back down to the ground, but instead I just let myself float up again. Okay, so this part, look at this. I get hit by those two lasers coming down. Then I get hit by, I procced auto recovery, which is fortunate, kind of. And then I got hit by another laser and kick. And I lost another curse death. And I'm just like, what the fuck just happened? I'm just standing there for a sec to recollect myself. Still infinitely ducked. You see how I'm like just permanently ducked? I was so afraid. Yep, still permanently ducked. Like popping my burst buffs here. Permanently ducked. Ouch. Yeah, so don't do this. Don't feather float into the boss. What I realized later on is just instead of like trying to feather float as if it's P2 and it's totally safe to do that, you should just like as an Adele, I can just guard it, right? I did make it to first shrink, which is, you know, better than I expected. I only did 2T, which is again really pathetic. But that was definitely more damage than I did in my first P3. So improvement, right? Improvement. But yeah, like here, I did the right thing there, right? And there I should have just, luckily I missed all of those lasers, right? Because I got kicked and I had white curse. Luckily I missed all of those lasers as I was passing through them, but I should have just guarded the white ball and I would have been totally fine. Instead I feather floated into the boss and I got kicked out while super lasers were happening, so I could have easily died, like multiple deaths there. Okay, there I just didn't see the kick. This resonance rush crystals are kind of annoying, not gonna lie, in that you can't adjust their transparency. So like here, like it's very hard to see where my character is. It's also very hard to see where the boss is. This is before the outline, the boss outline thing got added. So yeah, it's very hard to see, and being inexperienced, I kind of just like lifted my head up got kicked immediately, standing in the right corner. But, you know, as long as you don't get hit by a laser, you're fine. Now I'm standing outside. Oh, that's down FMA. I didn't even realize it was happening, and I died. Yeah, you'll notice that like there wasn't a single time when people started moving left prior to when FMA happened, because the party just wasn't like good at communicating when FMA was about to happen, like prepping the amount of like the a decent enough buffer before FMA happened, such that like we had time to actually make ourselves over to the left if there was a big left platform. Like every single time FMA happened, you saw a significant number of people like congregated under Black Mage here on the right, as if nothing changed. And in all of those times, there wasn't a single big right platform, right? So that's just like bad party communication, and me not really being in tune with like what kinds of things you should be looking out for in those situations where your party is not being as communicative. So here we are back at the end screen. So all in all, I would say a lot better than my first run from a macro sense. Like I was playing, I would say the major improvements were in P2, right? Like P1 was a disaster from the perspective that I didn't fully communicate with my teammates, and I jumped to the right when I didn't fully understand what quick bind meant. They all stayed in the middle, they burst. Luckily they were strong enough to like get through the phase without my damage really. And then in phase 2, I feel like is where I saw the biggest improvements, which was like I actually played closer to the center of the boss, and I defaulted to the right side instead of the left side. Didn't place myself in terrible positions all the time like I did in my first run. Granted, I did mess up in the sense that I was defaulting to the very right corner and then not giving myself as much space to dodge patterns one at a time. When rollings came by themselves, I should have dodged those first and then worried about white spikes and chains later. Instead, I waited for the rollings to like corner me essentially, and then deal with multiple patterns at the same time, which was much worse than just doing it one at a time. And then in P3, I was just afraid the whole time. I was basically permanently ducked and not doing any damage. I was too insistent on trying to stay on the right side of Black Mage instead of being comfortable like being in the circle where you can actually deal damage. And as a result, you know, I got kicked multiple times. I died to rolling patterns and like whatever. The FMAs weren't really apparent. They weren't very like clearly communicated. And as a result, in my inexperience, I didn't know how to prepare for them. Essentially died to both down FMAs. And so, yeah, I think that covers it. This was 2 days after my first run. So as you can see, like there was already a lot of improvement from run number 1 to run number 2. That's the power of VOD review and like thinking about the boss, reviewing other people's runs and stuff like that. Like definitely significant improvement. But like I said before, run 1 was probably a 0 out of 10 and this one was probably a 1 out of 10. But 0 to 1 is an improvement, right? And so once again, I hope that showing how bad this run is can give other people who are currently starting out some confidence that, you know, this is still on pace to clear Black Mage in a reasonable number of runs. And so hope you like this content. As I mentioned before, if you would want to see this without all of my commentary over it and without all of the pausing and rewinding and the slow motion and whatever, I am going to upload the raw run as well in real time. And I'll just have that as like an unlisted video, but like linked in the comment in the description section below. So that way, if you want to see that version, you can. But yeah, that's it for this one. I am going to post run number 3 soon, which actually happened the same day. It was like before reset and then after reset. So it'll be really interesting to see what changes I made literally in the span of like a couple of hours between runs 2 and 3. But stay tuned for that, and remember to like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content, and I'll see you guys next time.